Timothy Robert Tim Box McKenzie announces the coming of his first production. And Timothy Robert McKenzie film. Dexter's Odyssey. In terms of movie projects, I had in mind Dexter's Odyssey and a project called Dinosaur Kingdom. To prepare for these two projects, I will embark on weeks and months and even years of intensive and extensive research. With the help of people ranging from assistants and scientific advisors to the original Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends production crews or so, movie directors, producers, celebrities, etc., I will amass an unparalleled treasure trove of a whole lot of research, pre-production, production, and even post-production materials or so over the years, including a lot of dinosaur imagery past and present and even a whole little behind-the-scenes imagery from all the Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls stuff ever made or so. No stone will be left unturned in my quest to uncover every single piece of info the world has to offer about dinosaurs, Dexter's Lab, and even the Powerpuff Girls. As for Dexter's Odyssey, it would not be expensive or so, it will take a long time or so. But I think Dexter's Odyssey will be produced and made by my own studio, the Tim Box Company, in association with Cartoon Network and Legendary Pictures, and will be released and distributed through Warner Brothers Pictures and/or Walt Disney Pictures or so. Anyway, an art department will be set up or so. The Dexter's Odyssey design process will even result on hundreds and hundreds of thousands and thousands of conceptual illustrations and hundreds of dozens and dozens of conceptual sculptures. Dexter's Odyssey will combine traditional 2D hand-drawn animation, done in the same looks, styles, depths, flavors, character designs, animation art styles and graphics, etc. as the first two seasons of Dexter's Laboratory, the Dexter's Lab made-for-TV special Ego Trip, the Powerpuff Girls TV show, excluding the 10th anniversary special, and even the Powerpuff Girls movie, CGI, animatronics, makeup, puppetry, miniature model sets, digital environments, digital matte paintings, special and visual effects wizardry both old and new and other stuff with live-action footage, in a similar manner to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the Jurassic Park films, the Lord of the Rings movies, Peter Jackson's King Kong, Zack Snyder's 300, The Dark Knight, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, James Cameron's Avatar, and other works. Yeah, to shoot the 12 movies back-to-back, we'll have to shoot 16 hours or so of the movie on 24p high-definition digital video, with another 16 hours or so directly in high-definition digital stereoscopic 3D, with 16 further hours or so in 15 to 70mm IMAX film. As for the plot for the epic and complex 12-part tale, long ago, the uber-evil Mandark invested all his power to conquer all of Timboxia, a fantasy world that I made up, but will rather be a real world full of not just tunes, but also real people, real dinosaurs, real animals, living, fictional, and/or extinct, and even races that are quite different from one another, and also a mythic future/history of the world living in a dark, but highly advanced technological age and society which now exist only as fantasy, legend, and myth, only to be warned, in the aftermath of an epic battle against a coalition of multiracial soldiers, that a boy and a girl, either white or racially diverse or both, will one day dispose him. After a complicated journey, the prophecy and an ancient and mighty sword with magical powers forged against Mandark find their way to Dexter Odysseus Zaris, aka Dexter, and one of DD's friends, Lily, while Dexter spies on the three girls while they throw a slumber party. Dexter and Lily began to fall in love with each other, and not long after Dexter, DD, Lily, and Mimi grew up, and after a spectacular woolly mammoth hunt/stampede, the four agrees to destroy Mandark once and for all. However, this can only be done by smiting Mandark in the volcanic heart of Mount Nostradamus, which of course lies deep in enemy territory. The four sets off on their long and dangerous journey with a fellowship of 8 other companions, including the wizard Hadrogen, a young orphan boy named Lil Dave, and Tirak the Truden, one of Dexter's assistants and friends, and a character that I made up. They discover a land of wondrous places peopled with strange, fabulous, and terrifying beings and creatures. The most terrifying of such creatures is a huge Tyrannosaurus Rex dinosaur called Moloch sent by Mandark to kill the Fellowship. Love, adventures, battles, bloodshed, and stuff ensue, the caravan of Timboxia, as the Fellowship were referred to, banded together and eventually prepare themselves, the Powerpuff Girls, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup, and everyone else, to take on Mandark in a final world-shattering showdown. I think modern audiences will only watch the Dexter's Odyssey series if the 2D hand-drawn animated Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls characters, the human characters, the CGI characters and creatures brought to life through animatronics, makeup and puppetry, etc., coexist with a new level of realistic interaction that had never been achieved before since Who Framed Roger Rabbit. When work on Dexter's Odyssey will be complete, it will blur the lines between animation, visual effects, and live action until they will be almost unrecognizable. I think audiences will be thrilled by a world that will include such inconceivable models as a cartoon figure of one of Dee Dee's friends, Lee, fighting to the death, a partially robotic and partially computer-generated Tyrannosaurus Rex dinosaur with a physical spear in a digitally enhanced live-action mountainous valley or so. The first stage of production will involve filming the live-action scenes and scenery or so in which the 2D hand-drawn animated Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls cartoon characters would eventually be inserted. The human, animatronic and makeup and puppet creatures and characters or so in Dexter's Odyssey or so will endure months and months or so of reacting to non-existent characters. To help them, the voice actors or so will dress in bodysuits or so and read their lines off camera or so. They will also be surrounded by dozens and dozens of technicians operating a host or remote-controlled props or so. Horses or any other animal will ride on their own or so, and even swords and spears and bows and arrows and even guns will float around in the hands of transparent and invisible cartoon characters. If so, it'll be like an elaborate Invisible Man movie. Once live-action principal photography will be completed or so, the film project will be edited into a semblance of its ultimate form or so. Scenes awaiting 2D hand-drawn cartoon performances or so would be then enlarged into a series of photographs or so. These blow-ups or so will be used as a guide by a horde of 10,000 2D traditional animators or so working under the supervision of someone like E.D. Tweet or someone else. He or she or so will produce rough pencil-like performances and will combine them with the live-action, miniature, and digital backgrounds or so for my approval or so. 2D traditional hand-drawn animation or so may be taxing particularly because I'd filmed so many scenes with a moving camera. In order to create 2D hand-drawn animated cartoon characters that will fit into these scenes, the animators would have to draw those whose perspective altered as if filmed by the same camera. Once approved or so, 2D traditional hand-drawn animation will be redrawn, but digitally inked and painted on the computer with computer animation paint systems. To help bring a sense of three-dimensional life to the 2D hand-drawn Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls characters or so, an entirely digital computer-generated method of producing shadows will be devised. To help the Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls characters blend more realistically with their surroundings, all shadow detail will be computer-generated in colored tones and additional layers of animated effects will also be created on the computer. Digital compositing tools will help composite tunes, humans, props, etc., together as if actually interacting or so. Then, the millions and millions of frames of 2D hand-drawn animation will be then digitally composited at companies like Weta Digital for the Dexter's Lab characters or so, and or Industrial Light and Magic for characters from the Powerpuff Girls or so to producer over tens of thousands of visual effects shots or so, equivalent to creating the effects for all 3 Lord of the Rings films or so. For the sound task, I wanted a full, natural, and organic soundtrack or so. And so, a lot of sound folk will be involved in my Dexter's Odyssey project or so. Dexter's Odyssey will be dubbed and or mixed at a sound facility like Skywalker Sound or so, with re-recording mixers like Laura Hirschberg and or Gary Rizzo and or Matthew Wood and or Michael Semenick or so hitting up the dialogue, music, and or sound effects or so. Sound supervision, which will include the oversight of 15 sound designers or so, will be handled by Richard King from Warner Brothers and or Christopher Boyce from Skywalker Sound or so. Someone must handle the location sound or so. For the music, I will not only listen to other film soundtracks like those from Disney's The Lion King, Disney's Dinosaur, Waterworld, 10,000 BC, and others, but will also cut representative pieces of temporary music into the temp music track or so for the story reels, rough cuts, etc. or so, to see how it feel with the story or so, including those from Lion King, Dinosaur, Waterworld, 10,000 BC, and other film soundtracks. A person like Michael Giacchino or so will serve as the film composer or so, basing it on the musical atmospheres or so from other film soundtracks for The Lion King, Disney's Dinosaur, Waterworld, 10,000 BC, etc. There will hopefully be a gigantically massive publicity, promotional, marketing, advertising, and merchandising campaign for Dexter's Odyssey or so. Deals will be made with dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of companies to create tie-in products for Dexter's Odyssey or so. There will be books on the making of Dexter's Odyssey, i.e. Dexter's Odyssey, the making of the motion picture saga and/or the art of Dexter's Odyssey. There will also be 12 novels, developed concurrently with the films themselves, just like with the book and movie 2001, A Space Odyssey, and several other Dexter's Odyssey-related books will also be released, some of them aimed to children, but others, mostly others aimed at teenagers and adults. There will also be a soundtrack for Dexter's Odyssey and even a more elaborate one featuring the complete soundtrack. And there will also be posters, notebooks, binders, lunchboxes, thermos, trading card sets, stickers, candies, plastic models, jigsaw puzzles, board games, balloons, stuffed animals, action figures, play sets, clocks, wallpapers, special collectible drinking glasses, plastic cups, plates, straws, t-shirts, pajamas, socks, belts, buckles, Halloween costumes, magazines, keychains containing hair, fur, or even feathers of the characters and creatures of Dexter's Odyssey, special resin statues for theater owners, character/creature-shaped bourbon bottles complete with a recipe for cocktails or even milkshakes, etc., all promoting the Dexter's Odyssey series. More than thousands of movie theaters will show each of the 12 Dexter's Odyssey movies in traditional, digital projection, digital 3D, and IMAX DMR and even IMAX digital projection compatible theaters or so in the US alone. After all, as for the world midnight premiere of the first Dexter's Odyssey movie or so at the Annapolis Mall or so, the first movie or so will be 3 hours or so. Once inside the Bowtie Cinema Annapolis Mall 11 or so, everyone is to make their way upstairs for a round of interviews for TV, the internet, etc. The cameras will be arranged in a large semicircle and they'll be divided to 2 groups, left to right for group number 1, and right to left for group number 2. After the interviews, everyone is to go back down onto the staircase for a cast and crew photograph before being escorted to the front of the stalls so that I can bring everybody on stage and introduce them to the audience, and when that's over, they'll be conducted to your seats and the films will begin. Afterwards will be the Outback Steakhouse party or so. So, if the films succeed, and everybody, especially audiences and critics, praised and welcomed the film, then the series will be considered to be my greatest masterpiece or so. But if they fail to so do, so will the films, then it might be the worst. If it succeeds, even on traditional, D-Cinema, digital 3D, IMAX DMR and IMAX digital screens or so, then will be many of the best or so. After its theatrical run or so, each will be released on Blu-ray disc or so. There will be a wish list of what or I'd like to see on the Dexter's Odyssey Blu-ray disc releases. This is by no means a preview of things that will actually appear on the discs. In fact, it's similar to the sandbox conversations we all had as kids, the ones that started with "you know what would be cool? Let's get rid of all the obvious stuff right away." Like the Dark Knight Blu-ray disc or so, the Dexter's Odyssey films need a variable widescreen aspect ratio or so. And Dexter's Odyssey really needs a brilliant video transfer or so, even with and without the 3D glasses, for some total of 16 hours or so shot in 3D or so. I wanted the Dexter's Odyssey films to dwarf its predecessors in terms of visual effects and pure beauty in each frame, so anything less than a pristine, direct-from-digital transfer would be a sin. But, of course everyone knows this, so it would be shocking if the discs delivered anything other than a 10 in terms of visual quality. Same is true of the audio. Not only the films will have anything quite as amazing as the seismic charges from Star Wars Episode II, Attack of the Clones, the overall mix and score will be wonderful. There will be so many explosions, creature roars, and other sounds in the Dexter's Odyssey series, or so that any home system is going to get a workout. Luckily, these are the folks who invented THX sound, so there should be no worries here. To be more specific, here are the formats we'd like to see supported: Dolby True HD 7.1 and/or DTS HD Master Audio 7.1 or so. We'll be assuming that a complete Dexter's Odyssey Blu-ray box set will be a 24-disc set or so, with a glorious presentation of the movie on the first 12 discs or so, and extras on the other 12 discs or so. But what about a mammoth 72-disc set or so that includes the excellent pack-in from the complete soundtrack? We could add discs until the caravan of Timboxia come home, but this one is a no-brainer, as it's already produced and fits well with Dexter's Odyssey. Aside from this Dream Edition, what features should be included on the extras discs for Dexter's Odyssey? First off, we'd like to see the menus mimic those in a Blu-ray disc. In terms of commentary, in Dexter's Odyssey, it would be nice to see a couple of full commentary tracks from the principals. A separate commentary track from the composer and/or sound team or so would be brilliant. A cast commentary track would also be quite welcome. In this case, it would be the key players we want to hear from, but pop-in appearances from the other actors would also be welcomed. Fully realized, fully produced deleted scenes have become a benchmark on DVDs and Blu-ray discs, and that sort of treatment is a must-hear for Dexter's Odyssey. Adding fleshed-out sound to these scenes would really push them over the top. Of course, behind-the-scenes features are always welcome. With a production that is so epic in scope, seeing how it all comes together should be fascinating to anyone who follows film. Any feature that explores the trek from storyboard to completed film is a great start, but beyond that, quirky, fun pieces would help lighten the overall mood of Dexter's Odyssey. For instance, the video diary of an animator would be interesting. Much like the diary of an intern on the Life Aquatic DVD, it could track the exploits of each of the animators, taking you through each animator's day, including modeling, building, prep work, and drawing or animating. Other features we'd love to see include creatures, from concept to design. Anatomy of a scene, breaking down a scene like the T-Rex battle or so. Select episodes of Dexter's Laboratory and/or the Powerpuff Girls. The soundscapes of Dexter's Odyssey. The visual effects of Dexter's Odyssey. Continuity, wrapping up the threads of Dexter's Odyssey. Bringing the creatures and characters to life. Virtual galleries. Production video diaries. Post-production video diaries. Jump to a highlight, similar to horror's DVD's ability to jump to a death. A dream feature would be tour of the VFX and animation shops give by all involved or so. An insider's look into these places is something everyone is eager to see, so why not here, on the Dexter's Odyssey Blu-ray? A retrospective on the original creators of Dexter's Lab and the Powerpuff Girls and Samurai Jack and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends is another biggie on the wish list, but its inclusion might stretch the set to 28 or 32 or even 36 discs. We're game, are you? Additional materials should include a complete set of promo materials, including all the associated TV spots, trailers, and other promotional material. Of course, making a wish list of what could potentially be put onto a Dexter's Odyssey Blu-ray feels a lot like making a Christmas list of action figures. We want all of the figures, and we want them now. So that's my plans or so for Dexter's Odyssey. And so, would you like to see Dexter's Odyssey when it'll ever be completed? Would you like it or not? Would it be great or controversial or notorious or kick-ass or awesome or what? What will Dexter's Odyssey turn out if it'll ever be finished? Would you like to embrace the Dexter's Odyssey saga? Well, what's your thoughts, opinions, and predictions on Dexter's Odyssey?